Hi Darran, thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Which was the idea behind your book, Imaginary Cities?
My book came from a time when I was living in the city of Phnom Penh in Cambodia. So I was there helping out on a film about land grabbing and human rights abuses. So there was a big lake in the city that was taken over by the government, and all the families who lived there were kicked off their land, and a protest movement happened because of that. So I was there helping out on a film following those people, following their struggle. So it was all focused on the politics of cities. While I was there, I went for a drink one night with a friend of mine who's an architect, and we went to the top of this building called the Foreign Correspondence Club. And we were just having a drink, we were talking about architecture, and these huge storms started coming in, these thunderstorms started coming in off the plains towards the city. And it was rainy season in Cambodia at the time, and it rains so much that the actual river starts to flow backwards because there's so much rain. So I was sitting on top of this building thinking about the surroundings, seeing the thunder clouds coming in, seeing the river going backwards, thinking about the history of the place. So it used to be a French colonial capital. It was then a beautiful swinging 60s, really hip sort of place. And then the Khmer Rouge came and they emptied the city of 3 million people. So it was a ghost town for about 4 or 5 years. And I thought to myself, I just had this sudden revelation that the city that I was in was far stranger than any city I could imagine, any city in fiction. If you wrote down the story of Phnom Penh or any other city, it would be stranger than any city that we could invent. So that brought me back to one of my favorite books, which is Calvino's Invisible Cities. And I thought, I want to write a factual companion to Invisible Cities. What he did for fiction, I want to try and do for non-fiction.
Half of the people of the world live in urban or suburban places. What's their imaginary cities, in your opinion? Do they ever find it in reality?
It's a huge, big thing. I mean, we're seeing the biggest immigration or the biggest migration of people that has ever happened is happening right now, and it's primarily happening in China. The statistics are really crazy. There's a city, I think every 6 months there's a city the size of roughly Paris that's being built in the Pearl River Delta. There's figures that I've seen where they've poured more concrete in 5 years in China than America did in the 20th century. So it's almost unimaginable the scale of this urbanization. Now, my thoughts are always, what does this mean for the citizen? What does this mean for someone coming from a rural place into a city? Is it an intimidating experience? Do they find a community that they can relate to? So I'm always kind of trying to follow these people's journeys. I think one of the great things about cities is that every experience is subjective. So although we have a place called Turin, we have tens of thousands of Turins because every single person experiences different things. Different parts of the city have different resonances depending on who you are, if you're young, old, if you're in love, if you're heartbroken, if you're in grief. So the city actually changes. So a view of cities that is plural, so taking every single city as a completely different place with certain commonalities, but also within those, seeing every citizen as basically creating their own city. So I think everyone inevitably has their own imaginary city. Sometimes that's a utopian one, sometimes it's a dystopian one. So sometimes if we can help people to realize the city that they want to live in, that's the greatest thing that we can do as architects and planners and writers.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Darran.
Thank you. Thanks, bye.